أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I have been requested and asked to do the Juma today, although totally unprepared, but I will do my best inshallah. Islam has got, the act of submission has different stages. One is the formal acceptance of Islam, and then of course there's the personal engagement with the divine, Iman, which is a step higher. And some would argue that even a later step is Ihsan, to do beautiful deeds, which goes hand in hand with Iman. I'd like to focus on faith, as we call it, or Iman. To start with, faith, as I understand it, the word Iman, is a transitive verb in Arabic, something that you give and take rather than merely just have. That is why, interestingly, and this may sound very awkward in English, in Arabic we never say, I have faith in God. In English we say, I have faith in God. In Arabic you don't say, li iman billahi or indi iman. You say, amantu billahi or u'minu billahi. But literally translates as, I am doing faith. So you don't have faith as much as you do faith in God. In other words, when you do something, it is something far more dynamic. When you have something, you may have it, you may not have it, it's with you. But when you're doing something, it's a personal engagement. It's a very dynamic concept. And one of the key components of faith is, again, of that of rahmah. That you cannot possibly conceive of a person who claims to be a good Muslim and to be doing faith and yet not have the essential component in Islam, which is rahmah. One of my students is doing, you know him, I'm sure, Sheikh Vinay. He's been here before. He's doing a work, his doctorate on the ziyarat in adiyah. And he came up with this very beautiful statement, which I'd like to share with you, that Allah not only created existence, He mercified existence, which is an interesting component and concept. إِنِّي أَسْأَلُكَ بِرَحْمَتِكَ الَّتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْء, as we remember in Dua Kumail. That I ask you by your name that you have, which encompasses, by your mercy, which encompasses each and everything. So Allah has not only created existence, but He has mercified it. And therefore, one of the essential components of Iman is that of mercy. I always say that you can be a human being without being a Muslim, but you cannot be a good Muslim unless and until you are a good human being first. And humanity means to go and extend beyond yourself. There's a very beautiful hadith which I'd like to share with you. During the time of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, where a person came to the Imam and said, Hassan al-Basri, who we have mentioned today, says, Ajibtu liman najya, kaifa najya ma'a adhabillah. That I'm surprised at that person who is saved, how can he or she be saved given Allah's punishment? And according to the hadith, the Imam told his disciples, go and tell Hassan al-Basri that Ali Zain al-Abidin is saying, Ajibtu liman halaka, kayfa halaka ma'a sa'ati rahmatillah. In other words, I'm surprised at that person who is destroyed and punished. How can he or she be punished given the vast extent of Allah's mercy? So one key component in faith then is that of mercy. Our Islam, many a time I'm trying to think, is what I call a bumper sticker Islam. I don't know about you guys, but in Canada we have those bumper stickers, I love Allah, and they say, I love Al-Allah. I don't know how you can love Al-Allah, because Allah is already there in Allah, or I love Al-Islam, and so on. It's interesting that when you look at the Quran, at least I haven't come across a verse when Allah says, Allahu yuhibbul Islam. Allah doesn't love titles, He loves actions. So whenever the Quran says, Allahu yuhib, after that is some kind of action. Allahu yuhibbu tawabin, Allahu yuhibbu sabirin, and so on. In other words, it's not only a question of faith, it's a question of beautiful actions associated with that faith. An interesting component that we should also consider when we're talking of faith is that in English we often mix faith and belief. We often say, I have faith in God, I believe in God. Are these two the same in reality? Many a time I think that we tend to think we have faith, but we're actually only having belief. What is the distinction between the two? Let's put it this way. If I say, I believe in God, fine. I believe in shaitan, we must believe in shaitan because the Quran mentions it. But can I say that I have faith in shaitan? If I have faith in shaitan, I'm in trouble. In other words, you can have belief in shaitan, but you cannot have faith in shaitan. There is a distinction. I think that many a time we have missed this very nuanced distinction between faith and belief. Belief is something that we all share as Muslims. We believe in one God. We believe in the Nubuwwah. We believe in the Ma'ad, in the Qiyamah. And those who are Shias believe in the Imamat, Adala, and so on. Belief is something that a community or a group of people share. Whereas faith is a deep personal interaction between the human and the divine. So whereas we share the same beliefs, we do not share the same faith. Because the way that I engage with Allah is going to be different from the way that you engage with Him and the way that she engages with Him. In other words, we have a deep personal interaction with God. So, whereas we share the belief, we do not share the same faith. More importantly, belief cannot change, whereas faith can and sometimes must change. I cannot say that I believe in God more today than I believed in Him yesterday. But depending on my actions, I can be closer to Allah. In other words, doing faith more in Allah one day than another. The fact that faith changes and can be more or less is seen in the Quran, chapter 48, for the verse that I recited at the beginning. هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين. He is the one who reveals or sends the sakina, the tranquility, the peace in the hearts of those who believe. ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم. So that their faith can increase more than what it is now. Therefore, it's also important to note that we cannot study the faith of people. We can study the beliefs. I can study what Hindus believe, what Jews believe, and so on. But I cannot enter into the heart of a person to study his or her faith. And therefore, we are not allowed to be judgmental to people. We are not allowed to judge people's faith. There is a very important verse in the Quran, and I think sometimes we have missed this verse, is in Surah Al-Ra'd, Surah number 13, verse 40, where Allah says to the Prophet, says, فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغِ وَعَلَيْنَا الْحِسَابِ. Upon you, O Prophet, is to deliver the message. Upon us is the hisab. Sometimes Muslims have got it slightly the wrong way around. We tell Allah, you deliver your message, we'll do the hisab for you. Whereas in reality, it's the opposite. Because we as human beings do not have the right to enter into people's hearts and to judge their faith. This confusion between faith and belief is seen many a time, that we think that we have faith, whereas in reality, we only have belief. How many times have you seen, I've seen it, when Iran Air takes off from Tehran's Mehrabad airport or Imam Khomeini airport now, the moment it takes off, the chador go off and the lipstick come on. And you start wondering what's happening here. We are closer to Allah. We should have even more hijab, right? This is the women's shoe. But in reality, I found this also in other ways. People who are in the first line of Salatul Jama'ah every day, whether it be in Iran or Tanzania, whatever. But when they come to the West, somehow you hardly ever see them, because they had belief which was based on social pressure. The moment that social pressure was removed, the true colors are seen. My friends, Iman does not depend on where you are. The Iman depends on who you are. You can be in Mecca and be the perfect kafir. And you can be in Timbuktu and be the best Muslim. Because, as I say, Iman is not connected with the land. It is connected with the heart. And Iman moves with you. As I like to express to my audience many a time, that Islam is like your American Express card. You don't leave home without it. And you go around with it everywhere you go. It is important also to understand, therefore, that faith not only is a personal engagement with the divine, a commitment with the divine, but also it produces a kind of revolution within the heart. When true faith enters the heart of a mu'min, then he or she is totally committed to God. We see this in the Quran also. We all know the example, I don't have the time to go into it, but the magicians of Fir'aun, you've heard the story, when they saw what the staff of Musa did, it ate up all the false snakes. These guys were the magicians par excellence. They knew exactly that what Musa was doing was not magic, it was not sihr, it was mu'jiza. And the difference here, the Quran is bringing out the difference between magic and miracle. Magic distorts reality, where a miracle reveals that reality. Magic comes from a human being and takes you to a human being, whereas a miracle comes from Allah and takes you back to Allah. These magicians knew that this was no magic. What Musa was doing was a miracle. And immediately they fell into such that says, we believe in the Lord of the universe. We believe in the Lord of Harun and Musa. At that point, as we are aware, Fir'aun gets angry. You dare believe without my permission? لَأَقْتُوَنَّ أَيْدِيَكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ مِنْ خِلَافٍ وَلَوْصَلِّبَنَّكُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. I will most certainly cut your hands and your feet from opposite side and I will crucify you. These magicians are now being threatened with death. But Iman has entered into their heart. And what is their response? La ghayra. Inna ila rabbina munqalibun. It doesn't matter what you do to us anymore, because we have found and turned to our true Lord. And this is, I think, the lesson also of Karbala. At a very poignant place, I'm sure you've heard of this, but I think that we have quite realized the statement of this young boy. Whereas Imam Hussein is walking, rather is riding, after having met Hur. And Tabari says this, that he dozes off. They are going towards a direction which is neither going towards Kufa, nor towards Mecca or Medina, waiting for fresh instructions. And suddenly Tabari says that Imam Hussein dozed off on his horse. And then he woke up, and he did the istirja 3 times. He did the takbir 3 times, Allahu Akbar 3 times, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun 3 times. At that time, his young son comes up to him and says, Ya bati lima istarja'ta? Why did you say this? Why did you say this istirja? And the Imam Hussein says, Khafiqtu khifqatan. I dozed off a little bit, and I saw a man on a horse telling me, Al-qawmu yasiru wal-manaya tasiru bihim. I see, in this vision of Imam Hussein says, I see a man in a horse, and he's saying, a community is moving, a group is moving, and fate is moving with them. And Ali Akbar, we're moving towards our death. We're going to die. And the only question that Ali Akbar asks in return, Ya Abadi, alasna ala al-haq? Aren't we on the true path? That's the only question he was concerned about. And Imam Hussein says, Bali wallahi nahnu ala al-haq. Of course we are on the true path. And Ali Akbar says, Idhan la nubali. That we don't care. We may be going towards our death. As long as we have the truth on our side, it doesn't matter. As Allama Iqbal said, and I'm not good in Urdu, so I won't recite the Urdu portion, he says, the sign of a true mu'min is that when death comes to him, he or she has a smile on his or her face, because you're going to meet your maker. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal asr, inna l-insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu s-salihat, wa tawasaw bil-haqqi wa tawasaw bis-sabr. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The other component that I was talking about earlier regarding submission is that of ihsan. And very briefly, as we are aware, the word comes from husn, which means beautiful. As we are also aware, whenever we open the TV today, it's all very negative stuff about Islam especially. Sometimes you don't even watch the news because of the violence perpetrated, militancy, and so on. And yet, even us Muslims ourselves, we have failed to understand the concept of beauty in Islam. There's a very beautiful hadith. Some say it is a hadith Qudsi. Whatever it may be, but the hadith says, Allahu Jamilun wa yuhibbul Jamal. God is beautiful, and God loves beauty. Not only is God beautiful, but He also has beautiful names. We call them Asma'ul Husna. Whenever you see the word Husn, Ihsan, it comes from the same derivative, the same verb of beauty. In other words, not only is God beautiful, but His names are the most beautiful names. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا, as the Quran tells us. To God belongs the most beautiful names, and therefore invoke God through His most beautiful names. Why are these names of Allah so important? Because through these different names, we can invoke Allah in our different circumstances, different ways. In many ways, they inject in us the attributes of God. One of the most beautiful names amongst the other names, of course, is As-Salam, As-Salam, a name of Allah, an attribute of God. So much so that, especially when you are in what we call hayran, when you are bewildered, when you're perplexed, recite that name and it feels a sense of peace and tranquility. Not only is Allah beautiful, not only does He have beautiful names, but He creates beautiful things. I don't know about you in Birmingham here, but I used to live in Denver, Colorado. And in Denver, I always used to joke that it's more thawab to live in Denver because it's a mile high, you know, you're closer to Allah. But in reality, wherever you are in Denver, you would see the mountains. Because right at the foot of the Rockies. And without even me wanting it, the moment I step out of the house, you look at the mountains and say, Subhana Rabbi. Glory to be my Lord who created such beauty. In other words, the beauty outside, and you may have experienced it many a time. You're walking near the sea, you're in the jungle, you see the flowers, you hear the birds chirping. You feel a sense of peace and tranquility. The sunset or the sunrise. The reason being the beauty outside is so overpowering that it creates a sense of peace and serenity within you. And of all the most beautiful things that Allah has created, it is us, human beings. And therefore there is a very beautiful hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. He says, he says, God has created you beautiful. Now you make your akhlaq beautiful. You make your manners, your way of behavior beautiful. In other words, not only should we be appearing as beautiful creatures, but also we become the image of Allah in our actions. The attributes of Allah are in us for us to amplify and to objectify. In other words, the way that we behave with others should be beautiful. Indeed, as we know, the Quran says very clearly in different chapters, especially in Surah Al-Nahl, which "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'idhati al-hasana," that invite people to with the most purposeful preaching and admonishment, the most beautiful maw'idhatul hasana. And then the Quran says, and invite them wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. And when you argue, when you discuss with them, do so in the best way. We're talking of Muslims communicating with non-Muslims here, because we're inviting them towards our path. So the Quran says, do invite them or talk to them, even if it's disputing, in the most beautiful way, especially with those who do not share your beliefs. You can see very clearly how the Quran emphasizes concept of beauty and concept of jameel. What I'm about to say now may be strange, may appear strange to you, that in English, at least in the Western culture, we never name our children after names of beauty or handsomeness. You never say, my son is called Mr. Handsome, or my daughter is called Miss Pretty. But we do it in the Islamic tradition. We call somebody Hassan, Hussein. We call somebody Jamil, Ziba. What are these? These are names of beauty. Because in Islam, names are not just adjectives. They're supposed to be attributes that we inculcate inside, cultivate, and then objectify in our behavior. In other words, these are just not empty names. We're supposed to live by those names. My time is running short, but one other point, and where does this concept of beautiful action start from? Yes, Allah is the source of beauty, but in terms of actions, where do we start from? And again, the Quran reminds us, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Your Lord has decreed that you'll worship only Him, and He's also decreed وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, that you will do ihsan to your parents. What is ihsan? In our language, my language Swahili, your language Urdu maybe, it's like a favor. You can never ever do a favor to your parents after what they have done for you. Ihsan here in reality means acts of duty. You give back what is due to them in the most beautiful way. And as we are aware, the Quran, it goes even further when it talks about senior citizens. فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Don't even say off to them. وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. We were talking about dignity yesterday. This is the karamat that the Quran is referring to. That when you talk, especially with the seniors, why? Because the seniors are the most vulnerable in society. They are the most vulnerable. And when you talk to them in a dignified manner, so that they feel the true essence of that beauty that Islam is talking about. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. اللهم صل على نبينا خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين بالقاسم محمد.